Hi guys! You may or may not know that I was recently in London to go to Summer in the City 2014. I was in fact on the Booktube panel, which was the first Booktube panel at Summer in the City, and that was all very exciting, but I'll talk more about Summer in the City briefly at the end of this video. In the meantime, I have a confession to make. Because I am who I am, I came back from London with a collection of new books, which obviously equals book haul. Let's do these in order because I've got a couple of little stories surrounding some of them. And the first book I have here is by Robert Aikman and it's called The Wine Dark Sea. This is actually a collection of short horror stories. Now, the story about this book. I was actually in the massive 8-store Watersons with Rachel from Rachel Reviews All, who I'll link below, and we were just chilling in the horror section discussing books, and I think I said something about how I really need to read some Stephen King, because I do. And then we talked a little bit about Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, which was in the horror section, which I'm not sure about. But we were just doing that, and the guy that worked in Watersons sort of walked behind us, took a book out of the shelf, and just handed it to me without a word, and went away. Because I don't take a lot of convincing to buy a book, I thought I would take it home. I really don't know anything about it other than it's a collection of short horror stories, so if you are a fan of Robert Aikman and to rave about this book in the description box so that I read it, then please do. I will read it, and I do like horror and I do like short stories, so I'm sure it'll be great. It was just a strange circumstance to buy a book in. Later on in that day I did actually pick a couple of books for myself. Those are Rivers of London by Ben Aranovich, which is a sort of urban fantasy. It's set in modern London, but there is apparently some sort of fantasy underworld that our protagonist, a police officer, gets himself involved with. And then because I enjoyed The Magician by W. Somerset Maugham so much, I decided to pick up another of his books, The Painted Veil. I love this cover. It's the vintage classics, but I just think this is a gorgeous illustration. And this is about a wife and husband, and the wife has been cheating on her husband while he's away working as a doctor in impoverished countries, and he comes back, and to punish her for cheating on him, he makes her go with him to China to treat a cholera epidemic. So I'm excited to see where that takes him. I also realised that there's like 3 movie adaptations of this book, so I'll have to watch one of those after I've read it. Then when I was at Summer in the City itself, I was hanging around the hotkey booth and I decided to pick up Vivian versus the Apocalypse, which I have heard excellent things about from Sanne from Books and Quills and have been meaning to read it for quite some time, and I took this opportunity as they were selling all of their paperbacks for £5, and I'm excited to see where this goes. I believe this is a YA post-apocalyptic novel, obviously. I was also given a book from the very lovely Lena from Just Kiss My Frogs, who I was very pleased to meet, and she gave me a copy of Harry's Last Stand, and if you're subscribed to her channel, I'm sure you'll have heard her talk about this and interview the author, and she's made it sound really excellent, and it's really short, so good for non-fiction. And I'm excited to hear this 91-year-old man's perspective on the modern day political problems. The last book I picked up for myself is The Trouble with Lichen by John Wyndham. I just finished The Day of the Triffids by John Wyndham and it was phenomenal. It was my favourite so far out of the 3 I've read, although I've enjoyed them all thoroughly, and I really like the sound of this one. It's basically, I think, about some sort of alien face cream, which sounds really amusing, and I picked this up in foils on Monday when I was out and about with Sanne, and I'm collecting these editions of his work, so yay. Now that I've shared with you the books that I got when I was down in London for Summer in the City, let's briefly chat about Summer in the City. I did actually briefly talk about my experience at the Summer in the City on Sanne's channel in her video, which I will link in the description box. So this is just going to be a very short discussion, but I just wanted to mention the panels that I saw and what it was like. First things first, this was my first Summer in the City. It was my first convention, in fact, and I'm not gonna lie, I had some very nervous expectations after I'd heard so much about the kerfuffles at VidCon and last year's Summer in the City. I was a little bit scared of the sort of madness, but I think whatever they did to improve upon the situation this year really worked, because it was a lot less intimidating than I thought. Not to say that it wasn't quite a big and busy place, but the actual convention centre and the panels were really well organised and really enjoyable just to wander around. I didn't queue for any meetups, so I can't really speak on behalf of that. But Summer in the City isn't just about meetups, and there's loads of other things to do, so even without those I can say that it was a really good experience. I went to see 3 panels. I saw the LGBTQ plus panel, I saw the Charities Online panel and the Women on YouTube panel, all which were excellent. I enjoyed all of them thoroughly, but I have to admit I think the LGBTQ plus panel was my favourite. It was remarkably emotional for a 1-hour panel, but in a great way, and I have subscribed to some new channels, not just from that panel, but from the weekend itself, so I really enjoyed that. And like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, I was actually on a panel, so not only was this my first time at Summer in the City, but it was also my first time on a YouTube panel. I haven't seen any footage of it yet, so I can't exactly say how it went, but I think it went well. I enjoyed being on it. We had a really great audience that had tons of questions, so that was really nice to have everyone in the room engaging with us, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you saw it, then please let me know what you thought of it. But I was on that panel with Where's Wallace, Candy Something, Miss X Rojas, myself, and Books and Quills, all of whom are absolutely spectacular YouTubers in general and booktubers, and I'll link all of their channels below. I have to say the whole weekend was somewhat surreal, sort of taking YouTube from on the screen to in real life, which was very strange, but I really enjoyed myself and I would quite happily go back, so I would recommend going to Summer in the City if it sounds like your kind of cup of tea. And I got to hang out with some booktubers and YouTubers that I really like, and it was really nice to finally meet you guys. If you were at Summer in the City this year, I'd love to hear your thoughts, and if you've read any of the books I mentioned in this video, I'd love to hear your thoughts on those. In the meantime, have a lovely week and happy reading. Bye guys!